guy starts to fall into your lap, what are you thinking, and how happy are you to get a guy who has quality?
Well, one, really excited. I mean, really happy. You go through so many scenarios. I'm sure Jeff has alluded to that. You throw out and toss out a possibility of what can happen if you just stay true to the draft setup and how you think it's going to fall. You have to play with so many other scenarios, and I think those guys and everyone did a great job with the scenarios. And here you are. You knew a wild card somewhere could be in between that five. You didn't know who it could possibly be. And of course, you had two guys that probably changed that where they were picked, and then thus pushing a guy like Robinson to us. And you're sitting there, and you're looking at it happening. And one thing about being in that fifth position, you knew you were going to get a player that was definitely right in your spot, but you didn't think that would be the guy. I'm sure, and it all fell in place. And you prepare for everything, and then you hope, and then you finally get a player that you know can come into your team with his attitude. And just hearing his conversation when he went on stage and talked about work, I have to do work. And then I had a chance to talk with him right after he finishes some of his media obligations there. And the whole concept of what we're trying to do, what I wanted guys to be able to do is work first, work for it first. And that's the approach that young man has.
What were your initial thoughts the first time you watched tape?
Well, wherever you see the motor, the energy, the motor. It's always. I heard John Thompson looking at a clip of him talking. It's easier to get to turn a live body down than to raise a dead man. And this guy has a live body that can create things offensively and defensively that you don't have to say, go do this. And that's one thing, you have a motor already. He has unique skills to where he can play out on the floor. You see that he can move real well, defensively, from defensive schemes, pick and rolls, things like that. So he has that motor, and he has the toughness, but the maturity level that he has. He's faced so much already, and let us know that this guy is a veteran, so to speak, coming into our basketball team who's already seasoned.
How do you think he'll mesh with Cousins down low?
I think he'll mesh with our basketball team. So we don't want to piece things together right now. We just got a new draft pick that's going to come to our basketball team and help our basketball team all the way around. And so all of our guys want to be in a working mode. He's going to fit that mode, and then his basketball skills are going to speak for himself.
Keith, what's your reaction when you were back there? Was it? I mean, it was pretty much every Robinson was your guy. But was it when Gilchrist went number 2 that?
Yeah. Well, you look at all the mock drafts and things like that, and you saw that name there pretty prevalent. Most throughout pretty much all the mocks that you look at and hear conversation, and everyone at this time of year telling stories, so what do you hear? But you start to look at it and see that, okay, here's a guy, that kid Gilchrist goes, and then now another name that no one really had in there, and Waiters pops in there, and now here comes this kid falling right where we are, with a scenario that had already been created, and here this guy is, so the excitement was that here's a guy that you had in your picks where if it happened, this would be a guy, and it worked out.
Is he the type of guy you talk about getting like more basketball junkie types? Is he a guy who's lives in the gym and you think it would be a guy you have no problem getting in the gym?
Right. I think you won't. No, I don't. From what we've like I think Jeff said, all the research and all the information you get on players and things, talking to people around the guy who are in contact but not in contact with him, you hear about these players, and he's one of those guys that's a worker. He obviously knows that he has to work. He's from a program that lends itself to working hard before you can be productive. And so I don't think you're going to have a problem with him wanting to work to become a very good basketball player. Overall, I think in his mind, he probably thought he was the best player. And I'm sure he's going to prove that. But he's a humble individual. Never on the phone, the conversation, and even when I met him in Chicago, he had a presence about him that just dictate that I'm going to work for everything that's going to be given to me. I'm going to work for it first, and I don't think he'll have that attitude. He's going to bring that attitude to our basketball team, which is exactly what we want, what I want, and what our basketball team wants.
What do you think about the fact also that he's not like a one and done guy? He was on the bench for 2 years, didn't start till his junior year. He played behind some pretty good guys. Do you think that helped with his development to this point?
I think it did, because I asked him that question in our meeting. I asked him the question of how would you react to not playing at the moment when you come into an NBA team? How would you feel about that? And he said, Coach, I'm just going to work. Now, you never thought that conversation I had with him in Chicago would be a conversation that I can say to him again, you remember that question I had? Because now here he is, because you don't think those things are happening. But yet I asked that question to him, and he said, Coach, I said, how would you handle a coach really challenging you to be much better? He said, well, Coach, if you're challenging me, you must want me to be better. And so the question that I had for him then, now you can go back to that day in Chicago and listen to what he has to say, and now watch him grow in our program.
Coach, you talk about the tragedy. What do you do bringing in a kid like this that you know might need some extra support off the court?
Well, we support him anyway. That's what we do. That's what I do. Coming into our environment now, it's hands-on all year round. It's not just on the basketball floor. We do all we can to make sure that these guys are well-rounded as basketball players, people, and we want them to play at a high level on the basketball floor, but we also want them functioning well off the floor. And so coming into this environment for him, it's nothing. It won't be anything unusual as far as help, because we have a staff that's more than willing to help in any way they possibly can.
On a personal note, how was it for you being in your very first draft as a head coach for an NBA team?
Well, been around a lot of them, but being in there and interacting with Jeff, with Coop, with Sharif, all the guys in our scouts. First time I had a chance to meet some of our scouts, really, and hear them and listen. One, I had to just listen and pay attention. And just when you come in new, you got to understand how this draft room works. How they function, what they do, and I pay a lot of attention just listening to a lot of the conversations, and then added in Jeff and I, of course, with a lot of communication along with the ownership. So it was good. I'm glad that I was a part of it. Got a chance to now have an identity of a couple of guys that you really like and want, and then hopefully that one of those guys you like fall in your hand that you're ready to start coaching.
What was the mood like in that room once he fell to 5? I mean, I got to imagine you guys were pretty elated.
Well, I think it started when number 2 changed, because now it started to move at a different little pace, and it started to pick up some pace that it could be. And then finally, as it continues to evolve, and then once that 4 hit, you knew then that he was going to be in your lap.
What do you feel is the steal of the draft so far?
I won't say steal, but it's a good collection of individuals when no one was looking.
Well said.
Was it the automatic choice for you to pick him when you knew that he was available?
Oh yeah. It was clear cut. Yeah, everyone in the room was there, so it was no thought. Because like I said, you do so many of the scenarios, what ifs, and here's a what if case: if someone moves into a position being drafted in an area where you thought a player like him would be, and all of a sudden that scenario played itself out, and so he's obviously the guy that you thought about because you looked at what could happen if that guy's there.
When did y'all start hearing that Waiters was a good possibility in the top 5?
Probably like when everybody else started hearing it.
Yesterday?
I think this conversation probably was taking place a little bit sooner than that, but you didn't know for sure because, like I said, this time you call people and everyone's talking to each other, but no one has a clear-cut idea. You have no idea what's going on somewhere else. Not that many people are going to be that foolish to tell you who they're going to draft, or who they're thinking about. They'll tell you generalities, but not so much they're going to. I think a lot of people enjoy working for their companies. Won't share that.
What are y'all scared of? Just tell the truth. What are y'all scared of? I've never understood it.
Well, we tell each other the truth.
I mean,
we can't. We can't tell everyone the truth. We can tell you today. We got a fabulous young pro, and we're excited about him. And not so much on what other teams are doing, but we got a great young pro. Excited about this young pro, and I felt so good talking with him on the phone, and just hearing that guy's humbleness, and you could not imagine that his humbleness matches the way he plays on the floor. It's a complete different personality, kind of like mine, off the floor before the games, it doesn't matter.
How unlikely was this in your mind?
I just think it happened because this is where this guy was supposed to be. I think if things happen and how they happen, how they reach to that point, everyone comes close to being where they're supposed to be when it's time. And I think it was his time for us to have him, my time to be able to be his first professional coach.
You guys passed on the 2nd-round pick. You guys sold it. Is for you, in your mind, did you already have enough young talent you had to meet?
Yeah. You can see our team is still very, very young. Even with still maybe another rookie, but yet experience in Robinson. So, having flexibility is the biggest thing. So now you can go out and do some things that you are looking forward to kind of get your team a little bit older with some seasoned people So having another pick, you know, could it be another guy like a Thomas somewhere in there, but it would still have been a young player, you know. So we want to focus on now being able to have flexibility, and I'm sure Jeff talked about that a little bit.
All right, thank